ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भाम्
ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भाम्
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम्
वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्।
वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्।
ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति
ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति
मूर्तिभेदविभागिने
बुद्धिभेदविभागिने
व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय
व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय
दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः।
दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः।
So we have seen all these 5 slokas from Bhagavad Gita, 13th chapter, and we have discussed the 20 different values which are presented by Lord Krishna as a means for gaining this self-knowledge. So in this regard, any questions, if you have, we can take it up now. One question already was sent to me by WhatsApp. So that is about that last shloka. They needed it to be again explained. So the last shloka is Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam Etad Jnanamiti Proktam Ajnanam Yadaponyatha. So from Amanitvam onwards, Bhagavan is talking about different values. Now someone can have all these values but may not be a mumukshu or a jignasu. So that is why the last 2 values are very important, because they bring the whole thing into context. So Adhyatma Jnana means what? Adhi means with reference to in Sanskritam. So Adhi Atma means something with reference to Atma. And what is that? Jnanam. Adhyatma Jnana means self-knowledge or knowledge with reference to the self. And this Jnanam, again here Atma itself can have many different meanings. Even body can be Atma, Prana can be Atma. But here Atma actually means the Sachidananda Atma or the Paramatma, we can say. So that Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam means what? Always being engaged in this knowledge. So Nityatvam here means Niratatvam. That is, Nityam means always you cannot be having one thought or anything like that. That's not the idea here. The idea here is that you are constantly engaged in Shravanam. Let us say Shravana Manana Nididhyasana is the Sakshat Karanam for Jnanam, and one should be engaged in that while also pursuing all these other values. Okay, so that is the important thing. So Adhyatma Jnana Nityatva means you are always engaged in gaining this knowledge. You are making effort every day at least, and that shows some commitment towards this self-knowledge. So that commitment is very important. Only those who are committed and those who listen to the Shastra again and again, for them only this knowledge is easy, okay, easily available. that commitment only is shown by this Nityatvam, means always you are engaged in that. And Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam means what? Okay, why are you engaged in this Shastra Shravanam? Why do you always have to be engaged in studying the Shastra? To gain moksha, correct? That is the Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam means, what is the Tattva Jnana Artham? What is the purpose of Tattva Jnana also? You have to be clear, because you are engaged in gaining this knowledge. And what is the purpose of that knowledge? The purpose of that knowledge is moksha. So moksha you have to keep in your view always. Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam you have to have. So the purpose of this Tattva Jnana, that you have to keep in your view always, and then be engaged in gaining this knowledge. These two are the important things which bring into context all the other values which we already discussed. Okay. So then only those values also become meaningful. Also the other important thing is, as you study Shastra more and more, and it is going to be a self-transforming, it's going to be a self-transforming engagement. Okay. Because whenever you are listening to the Guru is talking about you, who you are really from the standpoint of the Shastra, Shastra Drishti. That's why Shastra is known as a Shastra Darpana. It's a mirror. So Guru is showing to you a mirror in which you are limitless. You are not a wanting person. There is no problem for you. It is as though all your desires are already fulfilled. That is the mirror you are seeing yourself in. And that you have to keep seeing that so much that it becomes natural to you. Okay, so that is the idea here. And that's what is talked about. In general, there is a saying that Paunaf Punyam Shravanam Kuryat, like that. Say. So again and again, one has to do Shravanam till you are established in that knowledge. And it is your first nature, in fact. I can't even say it is your second nature. So, those are the two important things in the last verse Bhagavan is talking about, so that this whole thing is in context. And all these things are known as Jnanam. Etad Jnanam iti proktam. So why is it called Jnanam? Because they are all Jnana Sadhanam really. So they help you to gain this Jnanam. And anything other than this is known as Ajnanam. They are all not sadhanas for gaining this knowledge. So that is the last verse, just since you wanted again for me to explain, I am just giving you that. So any other question? Okay, one more question which came to me is, what is the difference between Amanitvam and Anahankaram? Okay, Amanitvam, Adambitvam, Anahankaram, these are all related values only. So Mani is one who expects others to respect. So there is a demand for respect. Such a person is a Mani. Okay, they demand respect, they may even demand praise because they think that they have accomplished something. I am so and so. So the Amanitvam as a value is important because you have to recognize that even whatever your accomplishments you have made, all the glories which you think you have, are not really entirely your achievements. Okay, so you cannot really say that I am the author of all my achievements. So many people have helped me right from my childhood, and also Ishvara's grace is there, even whatever I have achieved. So one who recognizes all these things will not be a mani, cannot be a mani. In fact, one who recognizes the fact that everything is given to me, and one who recognizes the giver in the given cannot be a mani anymore. So that is why amanitvam is talked about as an important value. So even if somebody may respect you, that's a different thing. Somebody may praise you, you can accept that respect and praise without demanding it, or feeling bad if somebody does not praise you or respect you and all that. Is it clear? So I don't say that you should not accept somebody's praise or respect. Even not able to accept praise shows some kind of inferiority complex and all that. What we are talking about is an individual who does not have any complex, either inferiority or superiority or anything like that. Nobody is less than anybody else, and everybody is unique. So that way you can respect others, you can receive respect without actually demanding anything. So that is the amanitvam. Anahankara is also even one step further, we can say, because the thought of I as a ego, as an individual, is ahankara. Ahankara represents the individual really. So when you look at yourself as an individual, as a person, and you say that I am this, I am that, I did this. So all this, even though you may not demand respect or praise from others, still you have this, let us say, this thought that I did this, I did that, etc. Even that is going to only reinforce the individuality. So this individuality is the root cause of all our problems. And understanding that, and again understanding even your body, mind, sense complex, everything is a manifestation of Ishvara, everything is in an order, then you can't be an ahankari also. If you appreciate this fact, one cannot be an ahankari or think that aham, that I did this or I did that, like that. You cannot have any, you can glorify yourself also. So that is anahankara, but if you take it for a jnani, anahankara is the natural state, correct? For a jnani, I am not even the ahankaram, I am not the individual. Individuality itself is mithya. I am neither the subject nor the object. I am everything in fact. I am the one who becomes both the subject and object in this creation. So that is anahankara as a jnana drishti. In jnana drishti, anahankara is natural, because Atma is neither a subject nor an object, neither the individual nor the total. In fact, everything is Atma. So if you look at water as water, it is neither wave nor ocean. That is the idea here. So that way also anahankara from a jnani's drishti is an understanding. But for a sadhaka, anahankara is at least appreciating that I can't claim anything as mine or even me. This is me, or even my body is mine, and I have this, I have that. I have beauty, I have whatever. So many things we try to add, correct? Qualities about myself. So even those things we have to recognize for what they are. So they are also given, and whatever is given, if you recognize the giver in the given, then you can't be an ahankari also. So amanitvam and anahankara are related, and anahankara is even it's a even more advanced level of understanding, we can say, compared to an amani. Anahankari is having a better understanding. So those are the questions I got already, and anybody else, if you want to ask anything, please go ahead. Okay,
Hey Jay, Hari here.
Yeah, Hari.
So there are 20 values that are mentioned here.
Yeah.
And then there are several other values, and we also call about the Shad Ripavaha, right? The 6 enemies, Kama, Krodha, Moha, Lopa, Mata, Matsarya. So this list is not like a complete list or anything. So is there any gradation? Does this list assume that those 6 or any other values have already been met, and there's more advanced set of values, or any gradation like that?
Okay, Shad Ripavaha you said, those are the things we need to get rid of. Also, we talk about Samadhi Shatka Sampatti. Samadhi Shatka Sampatti is generally talked about as a qualification, correct? So, Shama, Dama, Uparama, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhanam. Now here, I would say that is one way of categorizing the qualities which a sadhaka should have. That you have Shama means you have a mind which is resolved, okay, which is calm by nature. Now, the person who has Shama, obviously here also we have values which represents Shama, correct? We talk about Atma Vinigraha, for example. Having mastery over your Antakarana is called Atma Vinigraha. So this Atma Vinigraha cannot be there if you don't have Shama. Then Dama is all these Amanitwadi are also Dama only. Amanitvam, Adambitvam, Shanti means you are able to accommodate other people. Means there at least, even if you feel that something is wrong or you are getting agitated, but at least your behavior, Bahya Indriya Nigraha is called Damam, and you are able to at least behave yourself properly. You behave properly even though internally you have certain agitation, let us say. That is called Dama. So here, corresponding to Dama, there are some values. Then Shraddha again is talked about here as Acharya Upasanam. Acharya Upasanam means you do service to Acharya, means definitely without Shraddha in the Shastram and Shraddha in the Parampara, you cannot have Acharya Upasanam. So, Acharya Upasanam represents Shraddha. Even in Bhagavad Gita, some other place Bhagavan says, Shraddhavan labhate jnanam in the 4th chapter. So, the one who has Shraddha gains this knowledge. Okay. Or Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshyanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshinaha, like that there is a verse also is there. So, this Acharya Upasanam also is important value, and that corresponds to Shraddha. So Shama, Dhamma, then Uparama. Uparama again here we talked about Vivikta Desha Sevitvam, Aratir Jana Samsadi and all that. Because Uparama again has two types of meaning. One, some people take it as even sannyasa. That means you withdraw yourself from other activities and only focus on this jnanam. Or Uparama is also talked about as doing one's duty and nothing more. That means you don't go and engage yourself in all types of activities because of your ragadvesha or kamya karma you restrict and then do only the duties which are thrust on you, you can say in one way, correct? Or whatever. You find yourself in a situation where you have to do certain things, correct? And those are the things you do. Other than that, you don't actually go and seek to do certain things just to fulfill some desire or anything like that. So that is Uparama. So that Uparama here comes with reference to this, we talk about here we talk about Vivikta Desha Sevitvam, Aratir Jana Samsadi and all that. Okay, so the one who seeks a quiet place and one who is not interested in crowded places or whatever, doesn't want to socialize too much. So Uparama also is there. So Shama, Dhamma, Uparama, Titiksha. So Titiksha is again the ability to withstand any type of situation. Okay. In fact, the Titiksha, there is a famous definition, I think from Viveka Chudamani. Sahanam sarva dukkhanam apratikara purvakam chinta vilaparahitam sa titiksha nigadhyate. Like that, there is a verse. Sahanam sarva dukkhanam means what? One who is able to tolerate, you can say, correct? So your tolerance level is very high. You are able to tolerate all dukkha. Dukkha means some kind of pain, whether it is physical, mental. So sahanam sarva dukkhanam. Again, toleration means not like you are gritting your teeth and you are desperate and all that. Apratikara purvakam. Also they add one more qualification. That means without having any resistance internally, you are not feeling depressed or anything. Why is this happening to me and all that. You are able to face anything cheerfully, even a difficult situation. That is apratikara purva. Pratikara means you are having some opposing views, or you oppose internally, you have some opposition, or you are not able to accept something, correct? Non-acceptance is there. But apratikaram means you are accepting it without any resistance. There is no internal resistance. Even though there is a difficult situation, some pain is there, you are tolerating it without any resistance. Apratikara purvakam. Explicitly they say, chinta vilaparahitam. So without any worry. Chinta means you can say worry, anxiousness. And vilapam means again feeling depressed or sorrowful and talking about that, correct? In a wailing manner, let us say. So you don't do all that. Chinta vilapam rahitam. Chinta vilapa rahitam. Sa titiksha nigadhyate. That is called titiksha. So titiksha means you are able to face all the different situations cheerfully. So that only is reflected here as kshama. Kshama also is accommodating different situations. Accommodating even people who are not exactly aligned with you, who don't listen to you, who don't behave in the way you would like them to behave. All this accommodation is a very important thing. The more you allow others to be what they are, the more free you also can become. Because otherwise, normally most of our lives are spent in changing others. So it's better that you change yourself, or anyway they will change you. The others are also trying to change you. So that is the issue here. So this titiksha
Jayji,
and kshama is there. Yeah, tell me.
can you explain this verse 10 again? Mai chananya yogena bhakti
Avyabhichari. Yeah, I will talk about that also. So here, then samadhanam. Again, samadhanam is a big word. Some people even interpret it as samadhi itself. That means having a calm mind. Okay. So here again, the samadhanam again will go back to this atma vinigraha only. So without having a mastery over your mind, you can't have a mind which is calm and which is focused, which is able to focus on things. Correct? Even we talk about adhyatma jnana nityatvam, also is focusing on this self-knowledge, being always engaged in that and all is samadhanam only. It will lead to samadhanam at least. So, see, we can think of this whole thing with an analogy. So let us say you have some dirty water. Now in the dirty water you can't see anything, correct? Even if you want to see yourself, your reflection you can't see in dirty water. So one part of that is you have to purify the water. Okay. So let us say you add something like alum. Okay, the alum I think many of you know, so it will settle down all the dirt. Along with that, it will also get settled and the water will become pure, clean. So that is the antakarana shuddhi we are talking about here. And all this shad ripavaha which Hari talked about, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, these are all the dirts which are there in our mind, in our antakarana. And to get rid of that only we are talking about karma yoga itself as a means for antakarana shuddhi. Okay, so all this dirt once we remove, also one more thing is important. If you want to see yourself clearly, still, even in pure water, if I throw a stone, let us say, and then there are waves in that, you can't then again see your reflection in that, correct? So you require pure water and you also require water which is still, calm. Then you can see your reflection very, very clearly in that. So now the same analogy we can take it for this self-knowledge. Self-knowledge also is nothing like seeing yourself in the form of the words of the Shastra. And to see yourself clearly, and you have to see in your mind only. Understand this. Your mind has to be pure and your mind has to be calm and still. And so
Jayji,
that is the whole sadhana is all about. Okay. Yeah, continuing with
is this also related to Shaucham? When you said that purification.
Correct. Shaucham also, again we can take it as Antara Shaucham, Bahya Shaucham, both. Correct. Shaucham as a value is there here. So Shaucham also you can say is an important value. So this list of 20 is very elaborate, I think. And it covers the whatever is talked about as Samadhi Shatka Sampatti is also covered here in a more detailed manner, I think. Okay, that's what I was trying to show you. So this is quite a comprehensive and complete list of values. And in this even Karma Yoga also comes.
Jay.
Yeah, tell me.
So, this is in continuation with Hari's question. So, why these values are only spoken? That is what is my question. Like, why did you choose only this particular thing in Gita? Like, are there any other values? I think there are so many other values talked about. But why did you choose only these?
No, the main reason is because it's a comprehensive list, I think. By discussing these 5 verses, we pretty much cover everything a mumukshu should be aspiring to have in terms of attitudes and values. So that's why we take this, and again, as I told you, individual things Bhagavan talks about in more detail in different places. But here in one place, all these things are listed and they are known as Jnanam or Jnana Sadhanam, correct? So, that's the important thing here. And so, by discussing this upfront, even people can have, see, the one thing is, really speaking, Vedanta is really impractical. Okay, there is nothing, some people talk about practical Vedanta and all that. There is nothing practical about Vedanta, understand that. Because the limitless cannot be practical or anything. If I say you are the limitless, there is nothing to do in that. But still, just saying that, and if you even have a certain insight, how does it make a difference in my life? There is a question is there, correct? That to see that only we are talking about all these values, even to gain that knowledge, to understand, that is where some practicality or sadhana and all comes into the picture. So, when we talk about all these values, this will also have an impact on how you lead your life, how you approach your day-to-day living. So, this will help you in facing your life, correct? These values, these attitudes, if you have, then they are going to help you in facing all the difficult situations which will be there in life, right? It doesn't mean that just because you have started listening to Vedanta, don't expect that you are only going to face pleasant situations in life. There is no guarantee. That depends on your prarabdha and what is going to unfold in this life. But at least by studying Vedanta, what happens is your attitude and values change, and then you are better equipped to face any situation. That is the main thing. Okay, continuing to Shalini's question. So, Maicha Ananya Yogena Bhakti Ravyabhicharini is a very important value. In fact, before that, Bhagavan talks about Nityam Samachittattvam Ishtanishtopapatishu. So, these two are related, are linked. Because to have a calm and peaceful mind, to have a pure mind, one needs to be able to accept both pleasant and unpleasant situations with certain equanimity. So that is the Nityancha Samachittattvam, Ishta Anishta Upapatishu. Ishta Anishta Upapatishu. When you are faced with, or when you get pleasant and unpleasant situations, in both cases, Samachittattvam, having this equanimity is an important thing. Okay? But how do I gain this equanimity? So, to gain this equanimity, I have to have a certain attitude, because this equanimity or samatvam, when we say, there is no samatvam in what we desire. Each person is desiring something. We all have the privilege to desire so many different things. Then we also have the privilege to do different things. To achieve whatever we desire, we can do things differently. So there is no samatvam with reference to action or desires. But the only samatvam is with respect to how you accept the results of your action. And if you are able to accept the results of action as a prasada, then only you can have equanimity. If you think that you are the one who is doing things, so if you think that you are the author of your actions and also the results of actions, then you will think that you are a failure, because nobody can fulfill all their desires. If we look back, even for the one whom we think is a very successful person, if you go and ask that person will say, no, I thought I will do this, I will do that, but I cannot, or I could not do it. So it's like that. Okay. So even for a very successful person from other people's evaluation, but that person himself or herself may still think that I am a failure with reference to so many things, because I wanted so many things but I could only get these things, and in many cases I am a failure. And if you think you are a failure, then you are not going to have peace of mind. So the main thing here is to appreciate Ishvara as the karma phala data. So when you appreciate Ishvara as karma phala data, then you can have equanimity, because Ishvara is the one who actually gives the results of your action. And these results of action are coming to you from the altar of Ishvara as a prasada. So if we have that attitude of a prasada to all the results of the actions, whatever we do in day-to-day life, then you can accept it as whatever is coming from Ishvara, correct? Because the prasada buddhi is something which is there in our culture. We can go to a temple and accept anything as a prasada because our expectation towards that is different. Okay, so because we look upon it as something divine, sacred, which is coming from the altar of the Lord, so we can accept whatever we get as prasada, same attitude. And so when we have such an attitude of Ishvara as the karma phala data, you are going to have ananya bhakti. See, Maicha ananya yogena bhakti hi avyabhicharini. So vyabhichari means what? Something which changes. Vyabhichari. And avyabhichari means unchanging, firm devotion, firm bhakti. And that too, what form of bhakti? In the form of being connected with Ishvara all the time. Ananya yogena. Yoga means here we can take it as connected or joined. So you are always joined with Ishvara, being non-separate from Ishvara. So now again this Ananya Yoga can be looked upon in two different ways. For a Jnani, Ananya means what? Ishvara is non-separate from me. I am not separate from Ishvara. My Swarupa and Ishvara Swarupa is one. So this is like the wave says that I am ocean, because both are water. Wave also is water, ocean also is water. So the individual Swarupa is not different from the Swarupa of the total. Both are one and the same consciousness. So I am Ishvara is the non-separateness. But even for a sadhaka, how can we say that you are always connected to Ishvara? You are not separate from Ishvara. That I told you that our life, if you take, is nothing but playing different roles, correct? We are playing roles in our day-to-day life as parents, as children, as employee, as employer, as a spouse, as a citizen. So many roles are there. and one role comes, then the other role is displaced. So when you are an employee in the office, you are an employee, correct? You are not there as a mother or a father or a mother-in-law or whatever. Then when you come home, that employee role is displaced by some other role. You are a spouse, you are a parent. But then one role has to be there which is not displaced by any role playing. Whatever role you play, one role is the primary role or the fundamental role, and that role is the one of the devotee, bhakta. Because as a bhakta, I recognize Ishvara as the giver, Ishvara as manifest as everything here, and my relationship with Ishvara is never going to change even though I am playing all these roles. So when the bhakta role becomes the main or primary role and all other roles are being played by this bhakta, okay, so the bhakta, the devotee is the parent. The devotee is playing the role of a parent. The devotee is playing the role of an employee. The devotee is playing the role of a spouse, of a children, of child, whatever. So the role of the devotee has to be the main role in our life, because in each and every action, again I recognize Ishvara as the karma phala data. So if you are able to recognize that, then you are always connected to Ishvara. You are non-separate from Ishvara, correct? You are never separate from Ishvara because you are always connected to the Lord as a devotee. Not only when you are going to the temple or anything like that, but even while you are doing your work, while you are cooking, while you are working in the office, while you are cleaning your house, while you are driving your car, all these things are being done by the devotee, and always you are non-separate from the Lord because you are recognizing the Lord as the karma phala data, the one who gives the results of your action.
As you told in the beginning, we are going through these 20 values, and these 20 values are to be followed to get the Antakarna Shuddhi and to transact in this world without being affected, which I feel is also called moksha. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. So, but what you told is these values are to be followed with the goal of attaining the moksha or be mumukshu. So, my question is, we have already gone through this, we have discussed it earlier, but just to memorize and to just keep a track or keep in the background that what is our goal of going through these values. What is exactly moksha? Why is it important, or is it needed at all to be a mumukshu? And how this concept of that is not having ahankara, that is thinking that I am responsible or I am doing everything, instead of that thinking that Ishvara is everything and everything is done by Ishvara. That is a losing our self-identity, and that kind of knowledge, or experience, how it will help us to be a mumukshu or attain the goal of moksha. Just I'm trying to link or relate all these things. So if you can help me a bit.
Sure. See, why should we aspire for moksha? This is the question with which we even started this introduction to Vedanta series of classes. Of course, some of you may not have joined at that time. So let us look at it like this. All human beings want happiness. We all want to be happy. But how do we go about gaining this happiness? So generally people think that I have some desires, I want certain things, and if I fulfill my wants, then I will be happy. So this is how people are leading their lives, correct? The general people think that they are a limited being because their sense of identity is based on either this body or the mind mainly, and both these things are limited. And since I look upon myself as a limited being, I am also wanting. I am a wanting person. And since I am a wanting person, I want to fulfill my wants. And for that I am trying to do certain things. I struggle to gain certain things and hope that once I gain whatever I want, I will feel happy, I will feel satisfied. But the reality is that even after gaining what I want, all my wants are not going to be fulfilled, correct? There are other wants come into the picture. Again, it's a cycle, correct? It keeps on going from one want to another want, because you are not questioning the fundamental premise that I am a wanting person. I am a wanting person is taken for granted. I am a wanting person is never questioned. It's not analyzed whether I am really a wanting person or not. And different wants keep on rising, and then you are trying to fulfill all that. So that's what is called samsara. Samyak sarati iti samsaraha. You go from one want to another want, correct? You do one thing, and then whether you succeed or not, then you do some other thing. Like that, your life keeps on going from one activity to another, you can say, or one life to another also, if you talk about multiple janmas, births and all that. So that is samsara. Now, so here we have to understand first what is our fundamental problem. The fundamental problem is one of self non-acceptance. So we cannot accept ourselves as a wanting person. In fact, the wanting person means I am a limited person, correct? Because only due to the limitations I become a wanting person. So I look upon myself as a limited being, whether it is with respect to my body or with respect to my mind or with respect to any aspect you take, with respect to how much I can enjoy. In any way I look at myself, I am a limited wanting being. But the problem is, if you are able to accept yourself as a limited being, there is no problem. But I am not able to accept that. That's why I am always struggling. So, since I am not able to accept myself as a limited being from any standpoint, my fundamental problem is one of self non-acceptance. I have an idea about myself, and that I am not able to accept, and I am struggling to change. So I think by getting more and more things, by getting more security, by getting more pleasurable experiences, I will become acceptable to myself. Okay, but that's not going to happen. Why? Because the limited can never become limitless by adding things. So, nasti akritaha kritena. Upanishad says that which is infinite, that which cannot be created, cannot be obtained by karma phala. Karma itself is limited, correct? Whatever you do, whatever you gain, even if you gain this whole earth, that is still nothing but a speck if you look at it from a cosmic standpoint. So, whatever you may gain, you are still a limited person. Even if you become Indra, let us say, even Indra has to stand up when Brihaspati comes, because Brihaspati is the Deva Guru. So, even if you become a Deva, if you become Indra, if you become even Brahmaji, who is the creator, let us say, but even if Brahma looks upon himself as Brahma, the exalted Jiva, then Brahma also is a samsari. Because Brahma is again born out of Vishnu's Nabhi and all that we say, correct? Padmanabha. So Padmanabha Swami is there. So like this, even if a Deva looks upon oneself as a Deva, then that Deva is a samsari. We cannot accept limitations at any level, even though you may be a very big person, very accomplished person. Even for that person, if that person looks upon oneself as an individual, then that person is Jiva, that person is limited. And one cannot accept limitations. So the problem of self non-acceptance will remain. So then what is it then which we really want? We really want limitless. We want freedom from all limitations, in fact. Correct? We really don't want things. If we analyze, we understand that we want certain things because we think by gaining that some limitations will be freed. We will be freed from certain limitations. So what we really seek is freedom from limitation and not something. For example, let us say you feel insecure. Then you can have 100 security guards. Correct? But that doesn't mean that you have become secure. The very fact that you have 100 security guards means that you are feeling very insecure. So actually what you need is freedom from that insecurity itself, from feeling insecure. So that is the freedom we are talking about. So insecurity is one limitation. Like that, in any way you look at yourself, we want freedom from all the limitations which we perceive within ourselves. That freedom is what is known as moksha. Moksha simply means freedom. Freedom from all limitations. Okay, so that means if I have to have freedom from all limitations, that can happen only if I am limitless. Okay, so I have to be Ananta. But am I really Ananta? I don't feel limitless. So what is the solution then for this fundamental problem of self non-acceptance? The only solution is to know that I am limitless, because I cannot become limitless. The limitless cannot be created, the limitless cannot be attained by going somewhere or anything like that. Limitless has to include this entire space-time or any other universe also, which may be there also, even because nowadays even scientists are talking about some multiverse and all that. Whatever may be the scenario, all that has to be included, and that is the consciousness we are talking about. That is the nature of oneself. So I cannot become the limitless. That's not a solution. By gaining anything limited, again that's a given, correct? By adding limited things, you can never reach infinity or limitlessness. So once we understand this, then only two scenarios are there in front of me. One, I can either accept that I am limited and that is my lot and live, or there is another possibility which the Veda comes and tells you, hey, you are actually limitless, but due to ignorance you think that you are limited. So you are already the limitless, but ignorantly you think you are limited. So all you have to do to become limitless, okay, is to gain the knowledge that I am already the limitless. So that is where a mumukshu, the one who is desirous of freedom from all limitations, now has an opportunity or a solution. And what is that solution? To know oneself, the true nature of oneself as the limitless. So now you become a jignasu. From being a mumukshu, you become a jignasu. And So now your goal is to gain this knowledge centered on oneself. This self jnanam or adhyatma jnanam, that is what. So knowing oneself as the limitless means I don't look upon myself anymore as a wanting person. There is nothing to want. It's as though all my desires are already fulfilled. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan says Krita Krityaha. Like that, there is a beautiful word is there. So Krita Krityaha means what? The one who has done everything which needs to be done, or one who has gained everything which needs to be gained. So such a person we are talking about. So you don't look upon yourself as a wanting person anymore. You are already the Purnaha. You are complete. You are the whole. And you don't lack anything in any way. So that is the vision we are talking about. That is the Atma Jnanam. So to gain this Atma Jnanam only, then all the other things. So what is the qualification to gain this Jnanam? Because any knowledge requires certain qualifications. So what are the qualifications here? Then we talk about Samadhi, Shatka, Sampattihi and all that. Okay. Of course, they also talk about Mumukshuhu. You have to be a Mumukshu. Then you have to have a certain Nitya Vastu Vivekaha also they talk about. So you should have a certain understanding of what is Nityam and what is Anityam. Okay, what is eternal and what is ephemeral. Okay, what is transient and what is permanent. So that understanding, Nitya Vastu Vivekaha, Mumukshutvam, Samadhi, Shatka, Sampattihi, these are all talked about as qualifications. So for gaining any knowledge, your state of mind is an important qualification. And here even more so, because here this knowledge is about yourself. Okay, this knowledge is not about something else. It's not objective knowledge, but it is about yourself. So that's why we talk about all these values. Okay, the values are there only to prepare yourself. The right attitudes and values will make your mind pure and still, so that you can drop all your wrong notions about yourself. Because knowledge gaining also is not something, you are not gaining anything new. In fact, you have to just give up all the wrong notions about yourself, because we think we are limited. So giving up this limited notion, the notions of being limited, is the important thing. That is why I told you, if you surrender your ego, you are actually surrendering the limited ego, and what you gain is the limitless, because you are gaining Ishvara Swarupa then. So surrendering the individuality need not be frightening or anything. Understand that. Individual only is having problem. When you are in deep sleep, you have no problem, correct? Even when the whole world is creating problems and you go to sleep, you are not having any issues. And you may even dream. In the dream world, you may have some other experience, totally different maybe. But again, when you wake up, along with the individuality comes all the problems, all the issues. And the individuality itself is something which comes and goes. It is not Nityam. That's what we have to understand. I never goes anywhere. I is always Purnaha. In fact, when I think about myself also, I cannot have any division in myself. Aham nirvikalpaha. Always there is no vikalpa in my sense of I. Even let us say, for example, somebody is hurt or they have amputated somebody's leg for some reason. That doesn't mean that person thinks I am only 3/4 now. Correct? You are always, as a person, you are always whole. There cannot be any division in that. Even law does not say that, okay, you killed a person who does not have a leg, so you will have only 3/4 life term or anything like that. A person is a person. And in our own appreciation of ourselves also, there is no vikalpa, as we say, correct? No division or no parts. My understanding of myself is always a partless whole, and that partless whole is really the limitless, because everything else comes and goes, but I am there as a witness in every cognition, correct? And really I am the basis for both the subject and object. The subject and object come and go. I am always there, even in deep sleep when the subject objects have resolved. So that is the understanding we are talking about. And to have that understanding, you have to have a certain disposition of your mind, because mana eva manushyanam bandha mokshayoho karanam, like that we say. The mind is the reason for both bondage and liberation. And even Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, only with your mind you have to gain this knowledge. But what kind of mind? A certain well matured mind is required, certain maturity. So that's why we talk about all these values. Is that clear? So is the link or connection clear now?
Yes, Jay. Why? Because sometimes normally when we talk in my workplace or anywhere, people who are well educated, there always comes a question. For example, if we have to donate for a temple or we have to go to the temple, people say, why should I donate to a temple? Instead, if I donate to a poor person, then is it not enough? If I be good, is it not enough? If I'm, if I follow all the good principles like, helping others, being kind to others, not harming anybody by words or by deeds, is it not enough? Why I should really be thinking about the knowledge? Why is it so important? These kind of normally people.
Yeah, I understand.
Why I should do Abhishek?
That is the 19th and 20th value. That's why it's very important, correct? So all these things, just being a dharmika also is not enough. Okay, of course you have to be a dharmika. You have to engage yourself in dharmic activities. But that also is only for gaining antakarana shuddhi, for a mumukshu. For a mumukshu, just being a dharmi is also not enough. Because what you really want is moksha. That has to be always kept in your mind. Only if moksha is the goal, you can even be a karma yogi. Whether you are a karma yogi or a sannyasi, for all of them are really mumukshus, correct? So you have to be a mumukshu, and you have to always keep, that's what is called tattva jnanartha darshanam. This tattva jnanartha is having this moksha, and right here also. It's not that you go somewhere, you will go to Swarga and gain moksha or anything like that, or you go to Brahmaloka and gain moksha. Moksha is here and now, right here. And for that, what do I have to do? You have to always engage yourself in gaining this knowledge, which is the Shravana Manana Nididhyasanam you have to do. So those are the important things. All the other values are only going to help you to gain this knowledge. So that is the connection here. Just doing social work is not karma yoga again. People can do social work to even gain some, as a mani I can do social work, correct? Many people donate only because it is like some kind of a social status they get. They can say that I am a donor, they can put a board. All these things are there, correct? So, being a mumukshu is the most important thing. All the other things are only auxiliary. Is that clear? Okay. So, maybe we'll close it here today. And if all your questions are answered, means next week we can go to Mundaka Upanishad, or if you want one more session or something, we'll decide that. Okay.
Hey Jay, just one more question. Please, okay?
I have no problem. Yeah.
So how do we? Okay. How do we make this pursuit more to gain knowledge than lose my sadness? Is there any practical tips you can provide to keep reminding us? I'm not trying to get rid of my limitedness. Instead of that, I want to go towards unlimited. So I think there's a difference, right? The positive is
JG request. I have to drop. Can we pick up this question next week? Hari, I know some of us have some other commitments.
Correct. So we will continue, Hari. We'll talk about this. Okay. We'll finish it off.
Hari.
Sure, no problem.
Purnamada Purnamidam.
Message before
Purnamada Purnamidam.
Purnat Purnamudachyate.
Purnat Purnamudachyate.
Purnasya Purnamadaya.
Purnasya Purnamadaya.
Purnamevavashishyate.
Purnamevavasishyate.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Harihi
Harihi